Hello, Extratime.
They point to the league not to get a hug because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read it, just laugh at you.
But simple look, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're credit for the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Kenny then to manage the Irish team.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Extratime Football Podcast. Your host Luke Jordan, Season 12, Episode 19 this week. Willie Sagnol, Macdara Ferris join me. Macdara, how are you?
I'm good, Luke. We're moving towards midnight here in Berlin, but it's been an exciting day of football. Some pretty interesting games. The Spanish win and England's elimination. England's progress into the quarterfinal.
Yeah, if the referee had it on 4 minutes, they will be going home. So today again, as we said, it was last week when we touched base first time that we're going to have these Euro specials throughout the tournament. Macdara is in Germany. Before we even touch on the games, how was the day so far? Which was watching football or exploring Berlin?
Yeah, I was out. I went up the TV tower today, so I'm staying close to that. So great place to get a view out across the city. Been doing bits and pieces of tourist stuff, and I went out to the biggest Soviet Union war memorial outside of Russia today, which is a little bit outside city centre in Berlin, which is quite interesting to go out on the train, where 7,000 Soviet troops are buried after the Battle of Berlin in 1945. So interesting to see the Soviet architecture and the quotes from Joseph Stalin and the hammer and sickle around the place. But yeah, there was a few of the tourists knocking around. So yeah, that was earlier on the day, but got back to definitely wanted to watch the England game. Watched the first half, having dinner, and the German television that Michael Ballack was in studio before, and then they'd Owen Hargreaves as their pundit on the sideline. So I was using my limited Leaving Cert German to try and understand what Hargreaves was saying in the build-up to the game. And then I did watch the Spanish game back in my apartment, so I have access to the international feed, so which is usually quite good. Not so good this time around because Andy Townsend was doing commentary tonight and I really don't like him, but anyway.
Yeah, I don't think he's everyone's favourite cup of tea. Actually, Hargreaves, he will be a fluent German speaker, so he was playing Bayern Munich, didn't he, for a long time as well, so he was fluent.
Yeah, and yeah, he played with Bayern Munich, so no, if you listen to him on it's not BT Sport anymore, what's it called? Anyway, yeah, TNT, you can kind of pick up a slight accent, but it's also that I think he grew up in Canada as well. So, but yeah, he was their pitch side analyst, because I did walk down to the Brandenburg Gate the other evening and did see where the BBC studio is and the ITV studio, which are in the same square, but didn't see Roy Keane. I did see the video of the BBC studio when Bellingham scored and everyone celebrating, but not Roy Keane, which is quite entertaining to see.
How does Berlin compare to the other German cities you visited so far?
Yeah, so I spent a good bit of time in Leipzig, but yeah, Berlin is absolutely a brilliant city. I was talking to some this morning and saying they'd never been to Berlin. Definitely recommend it to anyone even to come in for a city break. The airport's quite near. I did go out to the old airport, which last few days, which I'd flown into before it closed down, and I think it was 2008. And now it's just a big open air park. So I went up one of the mornings, people were just out. You can run down the two runways, there were people out cycling, roller skating. But yeah, just the history of the place, the architecture of the place, and just the vibe. Not as expensive as back home. And yeah, kind of a good kind of coffee shop culture and that type of thing. But on Sundays, it's quite quiet. So most of the shops are closed. Even the likes of the kind of the supermarkets and whatever were closed. I was going to pick up just a few bits and pieces and was like, no, everything's actually shut. So a little bit different from home, where Sunday just seems to be another day on the consumer merry-go-round.
Yeah, let's talk some football then. We will chat about the game you did cover yesterday for extra time, but I suppose the big game today probably was the England game. And as I kind of mentioned before, for 94 minutes, it did look like they were going home, only for a fantastic overhead kick from Bellingham. I think he is that type of clutch player they have in their squad at the moment that just came up trumps when they badly needed him. But again, that was an abject performance from an England perspective.
Yeah, Bellingham has been their standout player through the tournament, which is maybe not hard because they've been just so poor through the tournament, but he's been excellent. And if they were to progress, they needed a bit of magic, and they got it from him. But yeah, England were really poor. Like I think when you look at, when they came into the tournament, they've been called favourites, and I was like, okay, yeah. And my mindset has been, in the past, I wouldn't have wanted England to be succeed, and I've kind of got to the fact that England are going to win a tournament one of these days because they've done well under Southgate, and I thought this might be one that they would get there, and then they started off so poorly. The fact that maybe it shows I don't watch a huge amount of Premier League. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but the fact that they have a couple of Crystal Palace players playing in their team, and you're kind of going, is this the best that they have? And actually, the best player they have doesn't even play in the Premier League. It's Bellingham, who obviously plays in La Liga with Real Madrid. But yeah, they were poor tonight. And I don't think Slovakia are brilliant either, but they took the goal. They took the goal very well. And they just kind of ran out of steam at the end of the game, and they let England come in. Absolutely brilliant goal to equalise. I think that'll probably be the goal of the tournament. Anything that's better than that goal is going to be absolutely superb. And the fact then that England came straight out into extra time, and Harry Kane, who's come in for a lot of criticism from not just we're kind of used to maybe the written press, particularly the tabloids, turning on England, but the fact that Alan Shearer, Gary Lineker have kind of added to that. And then the weird thing where, Declan Rice was kind of saying, oh, it's ridiculous. We are fit enough to play this system, and kind of giving out about that, when it was actually Gareth Southgate who made the comments that actually he didn't think his team were fit enough to play the system. But they got completely out of jail this evening. It kind of papers over the cracks, but they now face Switzerland in the next round, and we'll talk a little bit about the Swiss, because I was at their very impressive win over Italy the other night. But England will need to play a lot better to beat Switzerland, and they didn't play particularly well this evening. But if you have a player of Bellingham's quality, that can be the difference, and we've seen that with other teams in recent years where they just have a standout player. I'm going to say the likes of Portugal with Ronaldo. I think France are not just about Kylian Mbappe, but he is obviously a focal point, and Bellingham, for one so young and one with an Irish passport, he's going to be the mainstay of this England team for the next few years.
It's interesting. I just pick on the word he said, system. What do you think the English system is? Because I watch, as the 4 games seen them play, I will watch a lot of Premier League football. I know most of the players, I'd say fairly well, but when I'm looking at that England team, I don't know. It looks like they play off moments rather than like you watch Spain, even the Spanish team today. You can see it's all about width. Get the ball to the wing players, let them create, and it's like that. It's fairly evident what the game plan is. When you watch England play, it's passive. It's like I say the most pass completed to both players. Say in the England team, I say it was Gay and Stones. I think both of them passed the ball just side to side. God knows how many times throughout the match. I don't know what England's game plan is, but moments of magic from, as we said, Bellingham earlier on the game to keep them in the tournament.
Well, it seems amazing they've come into the tournament with this real difficulty down the left hand side. Like he didn't pick Jack Grealish, he didn't pick Marcus Rashford, and they've got kind of Trippier and Foden. Foden's a brilliant player, but he's not.
He's lost.
I'm not saying you need to get him more centrally involved. He's kind of cutting in the whole time. I don't think he's particularly quick either. Harry Kane I think he's carrying an injury, so he's a number 9, and you play up to him, and then you've Bellingham in behind. But yeah, he went with Kobe Mainoo this time around for this game. So he made that decision to bring him in. I think he's a very young player, bags of potential. But yeah, I think a lot of us are probably enjoying Declan Rice not particularly having a good tournament. But yeah, they seem to have faltered coming into this tournament just when I said the expectation was that they would go and be much better. So, but they're still in it. They made it to another quarterfinal, but far from convincing. And the noise is certainly out for Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, and I think the battle point on the left hand side, I think if you're playing Foden on the left and he's going to play inside a lot of the time, or he's going to drift in, you need to have an overlapping left full who's going to put the ball across the box. And actually, funny enough, I know it's the offside goal, but the one time England had fluid play was when the ball came across on the right hand side.
Yeah.
And Trippier in space, he found Foden, he scored. It was the only good move he did all game, and a goal came from it. Now you can imagine he had a fit left back who was able to go up and down the whole game, up and down that side, Foden drifting in. It would work. And bringing Luke Shaw, an injury prone left back, was played fuck all this year. Excuse my language. He's played no games, and it's mind boggling. I think they're definitely going to go out next game. I can't see it going. I think he's a very lucky manager, always has been, and I think he's completely found out in this tournament. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a tournament too far. I think he has done well in previous tournaments, but yeah, when Shaw's the answer, that's the wrong question you're asking. You know.
What do you make of Spain?
Spain were very impressive. They obviously went a goal down early enough with an OG, but yeah, they were rampant. Like that's the only goal they've let in so far in the tournament. You know, they'd obviously hammered Georgia 7-1, I think it was in qualifying. So they'd you know, they weren't coming in particularly wary, and but I think, you know, it's between probably Spain and Germany to be favourites to the tournament, and they're playing each other in the quarterfinal. I think whoever wins that quarterfinal, that's on Friday, is most likely the team that's going to go on to win it. But yeah, Spain were good to watch because they're slightly different than the Spain of old. There's some really exciting young players. Obviously, they don't go much younger than a 16-year-old, but Nico Williams is really impressive as well, and Lamal. They've a number of really high quality players that make them quite entertaining to watch. But they were still vulnerable on the break, like we've seen that with Georgia. They've sat deep. They've had probably the lowest amounts of possession, but when they break with great speed, with great skill. They move the ball really quickly, and I think they've been a team that people will remember fondly for this tournament, even if they're going home at this last 16 stage.
Yeah, just on like Lamine Yamal, he's just 16. I think he just turned 17 a day before the Euros final. I think if Spain do make it as well, like I think it's an incredible talent. Like, and you hate saying words like generational talent, but you do watch him play, and he's just so slick with the ball at 16. Like it's incredible. Like, but a quick word on future Irish potential manager Willie Sagnol.
Yeah, when they
pretty big achievement in the last 16, like with Georgia. With that.
Yeah, it is. I think when we spoke, I was at the Georgia-Czechia game, and I was a little bit maybe dismissive of Willie Sagnol, and then they roll out the next game and they beat Portugal, but it was a Portuguese side who'd already qualified, but still they got that result, and they've done really, really well with the team that they have, but I still don't think he's going to be Ireland manager.
Don't think so, no. Why? Just in terms of he go elsewhere, not interested, not just.
Well, there's a bit of stuff going on in the background. Like politically, the Georgian government are moving towards Russia, so they're looking more to the east. The population, more people are looking towards Europe, and some of the players had kind of made some comments as well. One of the pro-European players hadn't got much game time. I don't know whether he got on today, and then there was a bit of discussion. So Sagnol was having to defend himself with some quite striking language about people who were criticising as well. So maybe he doesn't want to get involved in the real politics stuff, and maybe might go elsewhere. Like his star is certainly risen, but there's huge amounts of money that's going to flood into the Georgian game. By getting to the last 16, it's worth quite a lot of money to Georgia, and they'll probably look to hang on to him. So yeah, I think maybe the time for Ireland to get Willie Sagnol has passed.
Yeah, well, okay, we'll know over the next 2 weeks anyway. Like we'll get the idea. Like I suppose my only thing on this being, this we don't want to talk about the Irish job. This is the Euro podcast, but if it's not Sagnol, to the quote Richard Saller on RTE, what he said less than an hour ago, in the FA really have made a pig's arse of this. Like the only excuse they have is that if Sagnol's appointed, you understand the delay of an appointment of a manager. If it's not Willie Sagnol, we're going into September internationals, playing England, all these things in the National League with no gaffer. I think it's I think it looks horrendous. It looks.
Oh, like the whole thing is a mess. But what's been great about the Euros is we've been able to concentrate on some good football, even though Ireland aren't in it, and not wallow in the mess that is the Ireland senior men's manager role.
We'll leave that for another day. Let's talk about then your journalistic duties. Then, obviously, away from join the fan zones in Berlin, you were doing a bit of work for Extra Time, as we know. Do you want to talk through us about the press conference, pre-game and post-match, and a bit about the match as well?
Yeah, the pre-game press conference in the Olympic Stadium went out on Friday evening for the Switzerland-Italy one, and yeah, it was good because they put up their two goalkeepers. So you had Donnarumma and Jan Sommer were up for media duty. So there was lots of discussion about penalties, and that's kind of my match preview was based around that. It was kind of interesting talking to them about that, and Sommer said, he didn't get. He only worried about penalty takers that might come in regulation, and the goalkeeping coach would go to that. On the Italian side, Gianluigi Buffon was part of the coaching staff, and Italy won the World Cup in Germany in the Olympic Stadium in 2006. So Luciano Spalletti was saying that Buffon was telling all the stories about it during the week. I got the chance to ask Murat Yakin, the Swiss manager, about his kind of preparation for penalties, and I learned my lesson from there was the playoff we had against Denmark where I asked a closed question where I asked Eiga Harade, who's the Danish manager, had they prepared for penalties, and he just went no and went on to the next question. So I asked quite an open question of Yakin, saying Switzerland had won and lost shootouts in the previous Euros, and how was their preparations, and so we talked about that. Said they'd been doing them in training, but it was it's obviously different from the main thing, and ultimately it didn't matter because it didn't get to penalties. But the irony was after the day of the game, there was the former Danish manager Harada walking by me in the press area. So I don't know why he wasn't over watching the Germany-Denmark game, but I did get a laugh when I saw him. But yeah, after all that talk, there was no penalties because Italy were pretty rubbish. So in a match where Italy played Switzerland, there was no surprise that FIFA president, well-known Italian Swiss man Gianni Infantino was there. So yeah, he was down in front of me, not within touching distance, obviously, because we're kept well away from him. But Alexander Sefrin was there as well. But yeah, Italy were pretty rubbish. And in the post-match press conference, Yakin, that was the only time he kind of bristled when somebody asked him, did he think Italy would be that bad? And he went, no, well, we played very well. And there was an air of kind of satisfaction about him. It wasn't arrogance, but, they went with a plan. I think their front three were really impressive and they pressed Italy really well. And like Italy had made 6 changes, but they never really in the game. I think they had 4 shots on goal, only one of them on target. Whereas the Swiss really went at it, and I thought they were very impressive. Now they weren't as impressive as Austria because it was the same venue I'd seen Austria beat the Netherlands, but in terms of fan support, they nearly had the same amount as Austria, and the Swiss certainly enjoyed the celebrations afterwards. And I've been at the Luciano Spalletti press conference after the Italy-Croatia game, where people probably remember they got a 98-minute equaliser, and it was a pretty testy press conference. So I was like, oh, this is going to be great fun with Spalletti afterwards, that the Italian press would kind of throw him to the wolves. And the first question was, what do you see your future as Italian manager? And he kind of went, well, don't make apologies for asking that question. And he took responsibility on everything. The Latin phrase mea culpa came to mind. He said, the reason why we lost is to do with my decisions and what I did with the team. But they were really poor. And actually, it was quite a relaxed press conference up until it's about 20 minutes long. A Swiss journalist asked a question in German and everything is translated. But it was basically, excuse this clumsy metaphor, but were Italy like a Fiat Panda while the Swiss were like a Ferrari? And Spalletti did not like this question one bit. And I don't know whether the Swiss journalist was winding him up or not, but people might know that Spalletti, when he was manager at Napoli, it didn't start very well. And the ultras essentially robbed his Fiat Panda from him. And when they won the Scudetto the other season, and before he left the club, the Ultras gave him back the steering wheel and the CD collection that was in the glove box, but he didn't get his Fiat Panda back. So yeah, he didn't like that question at all. He agreed with the premise that actually Switzerland were worthy of winning. Just to quote him here, Switzerland did a better job. The Swiss were worthy winners, and we'll try and do better next time, as you didn't really cause so much of an issue tonight. But yeah, it was quite an entertaining end to the press conference when I thought he'd be slammed by the Italian media, but it was actually the very last question from a Swiss journalist, which was a bit of a throwaway one, that made the main bit of the post-match article that I wrote up anyway.
Yeah, I think a couple of things to pick up in there. Maybe start with Italy first and then go back to Switzerland. Like Italy, they kind of similar to England. I think there's kind of shades of similarity there with the two countries. Kind of stuttered way through the group, and Italy again. Like the Swiss did look far superior. Look a much better team. Are in fitter side, getting around the park, dominate game. I know you were at the games. You were much better probably. I don't understand perspective from watching them live, but just across the grass, I just thought they were very, I don't know, it's slow, the right way to say slow, and just never got going. The whole term never got going.
No, they never got going. Spalletti talked about it, said he was very disappointed with the performance against Spain and very disappointed with the performance against Croatia. But like, he made 6 changes, like he changed more than half his team. Now he was kind of blaming kind of Inter winning the league 5 games before the end of the season. And so some of the players, he didn't say switched off, but he said he needed to kind of change his training basically to get them a little bit fitter. But I think their number 9, he went with Scamacca up front, and he was very poor. I thought Chiesa was reasonably good, but El Shaarawy wasn't great. He got hooked off early enough as well. And they were missing a decent focal point up front. I think defensively they were okay, but they never really tested Jan Sommer at all. And yeah, they've been like, I don't think anyone is sad to see them go, but like, they're the reigning champions, and to go out in the last 16 pretty meekly isn't great. Now, I think Spalletti will probably hang on as manager, because he came in when kind of Mancini walked away, and he was only manager for about 9 months, and they scraped through qualifying, but they did enough to get through. They got through on goal difference just ahead of Ukraine, but they had really nervy games against North Macedonia and whatnot. But for the reigning champions to go out, as I say, in that fairly meek fashion, it's pretty disappointing for them anyway. I
went out with a whimper. I think you're right to say that. And you mentioned Scamacca. I think it's, again, like, I think the great Italian strikers over the years, like Ramon Totti and all these players, and then you're looking at the number 9, and it's Scamacca, who couldn't even get a game for West Ham when they were struggling. It's all like, I don't know. And to be fair to him, and he was their number 9 for Atlanta when they won the Europa League. So there's a bit of pedigree to him, but again, the level, or the drop off in levels between the number 9s they've had in the past now is quite incredible. Quick word in Switzerland then. Obviously England's opponent coming up in the quarterfinals on this weekend. Look, again, like I said earlier on, look very impressive.
Yeah, like Granit Xhaka is obviously involved. I was really impressed with Ruben Vargas, and he picked up the man of the match. Usually on our match reports, we go with a man of the match. He was the one that I gave, and then about 5 minutes after, I went over the PA that he was the main one. So it's always nice to be reaffirmed like that point of view. But even Dan Ndoye was pretty good. He was kind of cutting in from the right with his pace, which did cause difficulty. And then at the back, Manuel Akanji, I think, is a very good player. And then you've Jan Sommer, very experienced goalkeeper. Won the league with Inter, won the league previous year with Bayern as well, when he kind of came in when Neuer was injured. And he's getting on a little bit all right, but I think they've they're a very good team. They're full strength. They're not carrying any injuries. They'll have a full week to prepare for that game, which is against England. So they'll have an extra 24 hours on England, who also had to play extra time. But they still have that game isn't until next Saturday. But it's just the Swiss will have that little bit of extra rest, and they had their friends and family were staying in Berlin for the weekend, so they were getting the night off. But Murat Yakin was saying they weren't going to sample the delights of the Berlin nightlife, but because they were professional. But he certainly was taking great satisfaction from the win and saying, "Listen, we need to enjoy this because I think they've equaled their best ever Euros by getting to a last 16." And he said, "We want to continue and want to make history." So yeah, they're certainly be hoping that they'll get through the next round. I don't think England will particularly worry them too much. Although I don't know, would they have preferred Slovakia or not? I don't know, but they have England anyway.
Macdara, before I let you go, do you want to plug any pieces on extratime.com and what's coming up for the week ahead for you yourself?
Yeah, maybe just have a look at that Spalletti one. I thought it was, just kind of talks a little bit about where Italy is and where they might go. I'm heading to Leipzig on Tuesday for the Austria-Turkey game. So I'm doing a piece just on the stadium. So a little bit on Leipzig, a little bit on the Olympic Stadium. So two stadiums that have been redeveloped in two very different manners, rather than just simply kind of knocked down and gone ahead. And they were redeveloped for the World Cup in 2006, and they're still excellent stadiums. So that'll be up on the site before that game as well. And then so that's what my focus is on. There's the games on Monday, the France-Belgium game and the Portugal-Slovenia game. I think the France-Belgium game will be an interesting one to watch. Be watching those two on the television. And say then Tuesday I'll be at the Austria-Turkey game, which is the late game, and then the Romania-Netherlands game is the earlier game. That's in Munich at 5 p.m. your time or 6 p.m. my time.
I think we'll leave it there. I think that's a good, nice 30-minute chat and a catch up on a Sunday.
Yeah, no, nice to do. And yeah, listen, we'll talk maybe Wednesday or Thursday after that Austria-Turkey game.
Yeah, we'll let you go. It's nearly midnight now up where you were.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we'll let you sign off. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Luke. Good to talk to you.
And thank you for listening, and we'll chat to you all next week.